So, episode 5 of RWBY Volume 7 is pretty good. In fact, it's the best one so far this volume, in my opinion. And it's probably also one of my favorite in the entire series of RWBY so far. There's a lot of information in here, and it was very well done. They killed it this episode. So it kind of goes without saying. Spoiler warning for those who have not seen episode 5 of RWBY Volume 7, as I will not be showing the episode or any clips from it in this video. Simply images of the episode and offering analysis of the episode itself. I will leave a link down in the description below so you guys can go to Rooster Teeth first, watch the episode there, and support the series that we all love, because it is getting better and better as Volume 7 continues. And this episode starts off with a wake-up call from Penny to Team RWBY, as it's time for them to start being huntresses, and there's varying levels of enthusiasm from them, but they're all headed to a mission briefing led by Clover. John walks in with some coffee, and, you know, really, Marrow is best doggo, as his tail tells all of his emotions. As John walks in with the coffee, Marrow's tail is wagging, so John reluctantly gives it up to Marrow. And Clover tells everyone that it's time to start as huntresses. There's a lot that we need to do. For one, protecting all the cargo that's headed to the Dust Mine and Amity Coliseum, as there are Grimm and bandits that want to attack both the trucks that are headed there with all the supplies and, you know, the mine itself. So they're going to need to protect that, as well as needing to protect Mantle's borders, as resources are being diverted from what should be used to fix Mantle's damaged wall, which we found out in episode 1. There's a little news article about Mantle's outer wall being damaged. The resources for that are being diverted to Amity Coliseum, as, you know, that's the priority at the moment, which is probably going to play a factor later on in the volume that's going to come back to bite them in the butt. And there's also other things that need to be taken care of in Mantle as well. We see Jean on the mission guiding some preschoolers, you know, before they even get to preschool, across the street, being a crossing guard. The mission that Marrow kind of suckered him into in last episode. And, well, huntsmen in Mantle seem to be fairly popular, as Jean now has a harem. There's many girls who are fans of him now, even to the point of forcing a casserole on him, and upon doing so, one of the kids that was walking across the street had a reaction that I feel is going to be similar to a few people across the fandom. But speaking of the fandom, Nora points out that, well, it must be the haircut. I'm sure that's why the girls are all attracted to him. Rooster Teeth listens to the fandom. The fandom seemed to speak out against John's haircut, mocking it a little bit. And now look what happened. If you speak out against something like this, it seems like Rooster Teeth might just put in little hints like this to maybe say, nah, John's now a ladies' man because of the haircut. And speaking of hints that Rooster Teeth is putting in, we got another Bumblebee interaction. Marrow, Yang, and Blake are fighting in the mines against some Grimm that are there, and Marrow kind of points out, you know, why don't you two work with other people? See if your skills work well in combination with others. Do you even know if your skills work well together? And oh boy, do Blake and Yang kind of shut him up there as they take out some Grimm in spectacular fashion, showing that they do, in fact, work very well together, and Marrow's just like, okay, yeah, good stuff. So, you know, our Bumblebee interaction for this episode. Clover also says that, well, you have some time off, so use it to however you like, but also be aware that you have some experienced huntsmen here that you can use as other resources if you so choose, being the ace operatives and the experience that they have. So during their time off, we see everyone doing various things. RWBY and Yang seem to like going down to Mantle and taking out some Grimm in the back alleys there, which, very kind of them. Weiss seems to be training with Winter, as showing off her summon and her Armagigas, which Winter, surprisingly, doesn't seem to be that impressed with, which I don't really understand. We also see that Ironwood is now training with Oscar. You know, Oz isn't speaking to you right now, but maybe we can jostle him out a little bit if we rekindle some old memories and they start sparring. I really like that interaction, and I want to see those two get closer. Ironwood, Oscar, and I want Ozpin to return. Good path to make that happen. We also see Jean training with Vine. Now, Vine, his semblance being Vines, you know, real creative there, He is very good at projecting his aura outwards, and after sparring with Jean, he suggests that to Jean. Why don't you try extending your aura? So Jean might be able to be using his semblance in a much more spectacular fashion than Vine, because we already know that Jean has massive amounts of aura. Not to mention his amplification, using that with other people who could project aura, such as Vine. This could be something extremely powerful, but we'll have to wait and see. We also see Harriet and RWBY training their speed semblances, or I guess RWBY's speed plus extra, which is a little bit of teleportation, along with Weiss using the anchors, and it seems like they're just running circles around, probably training how long they can actually use their own semblances and how fast they can run, how long they can run, etc. And we get Ren training with Elm, if you can call it that. He seems to not be having the greatest time with that. But then it moves to Team Juniper. And I say Juniper as Oscar seems to be joining them in that sense. Without being officially stated, he's fighting alongside Jean, Ren, and Nora against, and I called it, Team Funky. Team Funky has returned. We see Flint Cole and Neon return, and we get to be introduced to the other two members of their team, Ivory and Cobalt. And we see a little bit of Nora's upgrade, I think, to her hammer, as she pretty much rides it like Harry Potter is riding his broom, flying through the air, chasing after Neon. And it's pretty interesting, as Neon is mocking Nora, similar to how Neon mocked Yang way back in the Vital Fighting Festival, that, wow, your boyfriend's holding his own against Ivory. Where's all that energy when he's around you? Oh, that pisses off Nora just a little bit, as, you know, they are struggling in the fight a little bit, but once it gets to the point where they're about to win, Neon's the last one standing, and Nora finishes it with a hammer to the head. So, yeah, you don't want to mock Nora, you don't want to mock Yang. Neon is not picking the best people to mock, though I guess that's her fighting style, just to get under the opponent's skin, but I'm really happy to see Team Funky again. How about you guys? And I want to see some other members who may have fought in the Vital Fighting Festival from Atlas, especially that unnamed person from Atlas who made it in the finals. We'll see. And speaking of people who made it to the finals in the Vital Fighting Festival from Atlas, after Juniper and Funky finish their training session, Juniper is called away on a mission briefing, we cut to Penny and RWBY as they are on a mission delivering supplies to Amity Coliseum. You know, not the most exciting at this point with such a scenic atmosphere, as Penny put it, but Penny remarks that they can't actually fly the supplies to the Coliseum, which would be faster, but it would waste more dust that is needed for not only the launch, but the Grim that come afterwards. Just that one offhand remark, it's not really touched on in any capacity, but that seems to me as foreshadowing that when Amity Coliseum takes off, of course it's going to make a loud noise, which is going to draw Grim, but maybe it's going to leave a crater in the ground and there will be some other boss-style Grim sleeping under the winter and ice of Atlas. We saw back in Volume 3, the Wyvern, it was sleeping within a mountain that was woken up by all of the things that are happening and the panic and things like that. So maybe that will be the case here. We've seen many boss-style Grim throughout the series, and it seems like it's becoming a trend at the end of various volumes that don't end with a giant clash that's relevant to the plot. You know, Volumes 3 had the Wyvern, 4 had the Nukkalavi, as well as the Sifei Long. Volume 5 was the exception, with being the Battle of Haven, very plot relevant, etc. And then Volume 6, the Leviathan. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see another boss-style Grim with this volume as well. Penny then remarks that she's very happy to be working with RWBY in a professional capacity, as friends. And RWBY asks the question, have you had a chance to make any more friends? Apparently not, because Ironwood says she doesn't have time for friends now that she's the protector of Mantle. I'm very concerned by this, that Ironwood's just treating Penny as like an upgraded Atlesian knight. That, okay, she's mechanical and has a personality, sure, but she doesn't have any free time. We saw just a couple minutes beforehand that Team RWBY and Juniper have some free time, some time off to do whatever they please. And apparently this isn't the case for Penny, that I don't know. I'm concerned a little bit about that. And Penny also makes the remark that, you know, I have this conflicting desire. I know I have what I need to do, but there's also things I want to do. Why can't I do both? And she asks RWBY about that and says that, is that normal? Of course, it is normal. It's normal for all of us. You know, working 40 hours a week or more, in a lot of people's cases, we still want time to do what we want to do. There's what we have to do to support ourselves and live, but there's also what we want to do. It's very basic, and the fact that Penny's just not allowed that just does not sit right with me. But it also seems that Penny and RWBY are not the only ones on the mission, as Crow and Clover are sitting in the back playing cards. Holy shit, is that unfair. Bad luck versus good luck in a card game. No wonder Clover's been winning every single hand. That is just... that's so unfair. Thank God they're not gambling money on it, because Crow would have been cleaned out completely. God, that's just not fair. But throughout this conversation, they're, you know, Clover makes a remark that's very suspect in my mind. He turns to Crow and says, you know, your niece is really something, one of a kind. And Crow just kind of doesn't acknowledge it and says, yeah, all of them are. But Clover is speaking about RWBY, the silver-eyed warrior. All of Team RWBY is talented, but RWBY in particular is something else because of the eyes. You know, if there is a traitor in the Ace Operatives, Clover is looking more and more suspect, which I just made a video on that I really don't want that to be the case, but we'll see how it ends up developing. Though I will give credit to Clover, as throughout this conversation he tells Crow that he needs to stop being as hard on himself and learn to take a compliment. As he says that Crow has had a very profound effect on RWBY and the rest of Team RWBY, as he was their guide and trained RWBY herself, as well as helped them out in many ways, and that he should give himself more credit. So I'll give that to Clover, that he's really helping out with Crow's recovery. And we also get confirmation in this conversation that Crow, in fact, has completely quit drinking. Something that we all suspected after Volume 6, but confirmation in this conversation. Now, it's cut short as, well, there seems to be a little bit of a blockade set up by none other than Robin Hill. Finally, she's introduced into this volume, and Robin tells her happy huntresses to show their teeth, something that we saw spray painted on a door back in episode 1 of Volume 7, so that was a reference to their organization. Clover, Crow, and RWBY get out of the truck to go and discuss things with Robin and the one happy huntress that is there with her, who we saw in the last episode watching Amity Coliseum arrive at the dust mine, which is something that I forgot to mention in my review of that episode. Now, unfortunately, it seems like my entire theory that Crow knows Robin is not the case, as he doesn't make any mention or has any idea who she is, vice versa as well. But it does seem like Clover and Robin do know each other, as they have a little back and forth, where Robin's trying to find out where these resources that are meant for the outer wall of Mantle are going to the middle of nowhere. And Clover kind of just brushes it off, but then Robin gets a bit more direct. We know about Amity Coliseum. Why is that so important? The Vital Fighting Festival is not anytime soon. What's going on? And again, Clover is just like, you know, it's nothing you have to worry about, and wants to keep everything hush-hush, which makes sense. But then we get a little hint at what I think is Robin's semblance, because she holds out her hand and says, oh, come on, just tell me. Clover seems very suspect of this and doesn't give her anything, which kind of, I wouldn't say surprises Robin, but she's kind of a bit disappointed in it. I think her semblance is actually persuasion, or something along those lines, as she then turns to Crow and RWBY and asks them. She's just like, hey, do either you two want to inform me of what's going on? And RWBY's actually about to speak up, but then Clover, instead of, he interjects, but normally when someone interjects, they'd say, you know, okay, RWBY, don't say anything. But instead, he said, Robin, that's enough. So I think Robin was using her semblance of what I assume is persuasion on RWBY, and probably the weakness of it is either something to do with Clover's good luck, or that once you know about her semblance and are aware of it, then you can kind of put up mental blocks to it. I'm guessing that's more of the case, and since RWBY had no idea about it, she was very susceptible to it. Regardless, it seems during this entire conversation, the other two members of the Happy Huntresses, Joanna and May, were sneaking up on the back of the armored vehicle that they were in. But Penny was inside the vehicle as an element of surprise and hops out and says, hey Robin, do you want to maybe stop these two huntresses from sneaking up on the back of the vehicle? And Robin tells them, okay, stand down, they know we're here. And she kind of looks at Penny and says, oh, you're the protector of Mantle. Meaning that, well, you're taking resources from Mantle for Atlas's gains and, you know, not really a real protector in that sense. So I feel bad for Penny that Robin's not really being that positive towards her, but it kind of makes sense given the situation. But it seems like Robin's Happy Huntresses, we don't know all of their abilities, but it seems like one of them at least has a cloaking ability, as the two people sneaking up on the back of the caravan were completely invisible. No one had any idea they were approaching, except for Penny, who has, you know, her sensors and probably radar or something built into her programming. But at this point, Robin just lets them all through, as her little plan to jump them was kind of foiled. But she says something at the end that I want to find out what is going on with Amity Coliseum. By any means necessary. That's not good. That means that Robin is going to be a problem for the next little while. Which sucks because she's an advocate of Mantle. She's trying to get on the council, as Clover pointed out during this entire conversation. You know, maybe you shouldn't be jumping people and acting as bandits trying to take this stuff for Mantle if you're trying to get onto the council. At the end of the conversation, though, Clover still wishes her good luck, so maybe they're fellow classmates or have some history between them. And, like, Robin really is trying to do good for Mantle. It's just, she's going about it, at least in this case, in a way that is kind of counterintuitive, because this is going to be something that helps all of Remnant, and it's just she's not in on all the information. Things are going to play out interestingly, and I think Robin might play a role in slowing down Amity Coliseum's launch, at least by any means necessary, if that means what I think it does. And then we cut to Weiss and Winter as they are having a summoning battle. It's Weiss's Armagigas versus Winter's massive Beowulf. And I wish I could say the fight lasted a long time, but it really didn't, as the Beowulf quickly beheaded the Armagigas. So what this Beowulf must have looked like in real life, as it's just as big as the Armagigas, I want to see a flashback to Winter going through that entire experience. That would be something interesting. But Winter, after the fight, says that Weiss has grown up a bit, that she's no longer using the Schnee name, and that her and Weiss could move forward together, that Ironwood probably has a place for her in Atlas. But Weiss can't really accept that, as Atlas is not in a situation that she really likes. They should be opening up their borders and helping, not closing off their borders and being, you know, fairly selfish. Well, Winter says that they will. After the storm has settled, they will open up their borders. The storm that they're going to ensue is telling the entire world about Salem. Well, of course Atlas is going to be fine because the military and everything is prepared for the ensuing chaos and grim attacks that are going to come. But when they tell everyone else in the world, no one's going to be prepared, and then panic is going to ensue, grim are going to come. How many people are going to be left to be helped after all of this happens? What they really should be doing is, once the global communications are back up, contacting the people who are leading Shade Academy and Vacuo, who are leading Mistral and Vale, assuming the councils are still in place, and telling them, hey, Salem exists, we're going to tell everyone in the public, just a heads up, maybe prepare a little bit so you can have your defenses and so everyone in your entire kingdoms aren't wiped out. Because right now, the only active academies in all of Remnant, as far as I know, are Shade Academy and Atlas. So Shade Academy itself would probably be okay. Vale and Mistral have already had a fairly tough time with, you know, the fall of Beacon and the attack on Haven Academy. They're absolutely screwed when this goes through if they don't tell the people in charge first and they don't have time to prepare for it. Atlas is going to screw over Remnant if this goes through how it seems like it's going to. Hopefully they've planned a little bit more ahead, but we shall see. Now, Weiss also points out that everyone seems to be doing what they think is right, but normally it's for themselves and their secrets. But no, Ironwood doesn't keep any secrets from Winter, and Weiss just says, how can you be sure? We see a little bit of doubt in Winter's eyes, but she has a way that she thinks will show Weiss that Ironwood does trust her with everything. So we see Weiss and Winter go to a very secure Atlas facility, where we see, behind glass and in an isolated room, an old lady lying in a bed connected to many machines behind her. This is Freya, the Winter Maiden. So unfortunately, everyone who thought it was Winter Schnee was wrong. It is not Winter Schnee, and I was wrong in thinking that it was Willow Schnee, Weiss and Winter's mother. In fact, it's just a new character, someone we had never met before, is the Winter Maiden. And we find out that Ironwood is not allowing Freya to see anyone else but Winter. Winter is being set up as the next Winter Maiden. Freya is probably going to die within a couple days, and so it seems very soon that a new Winter Maiden will be born. But, you know, throughout this conversation, Weiss brings up that, well, aren't you upset that your entire military career has just been planned out for you? And Winter was at the beginning, but has accepted it and is now proud of it. Weiss says one phrase, or brings up a specific word. She says, but your destiny has been chosen for you. And upon bringing up the word destiny, did anyone else get flashbacks to Volume 3? Because when destiny is brought up, that doesn't really bode very well for the people it's referring to, at least in this series' history so far. So I'm pretty sure that Winter's not going to be the person who inherits the Winter Maiden's powers. It's being set up that way, but I don't think she's going to. What's probably going to end up happening is it's going to be Weiss. I think because Weiss is the only other person from, you know, our main cast that has been introduced to Freya, I think something's going to happen. The facility's going to be attacked or something along those lines. Some catastrophe's going to hit, and Weiss is going to go in to rescue Freya. Maybe Winter's preoccupied or something like that. Weiss is going to go in to rescue Freya. Something's going to happen to Freya, unfortunately, and she's going to die from either the stress, or maybe the ceiling's going to cave in or something, and then the powers are going to immediately transfer to Weiss because that was the last person in Freya's mind. That's my guess. I might make a separate video on that, but we'll have to see. And it could also be a different character, but I'm putting my money on Weiss because the entire, you know, Schnee symbol being a snowflake, etc., seems very foreboding for her becoming the Winter Maiden. Now, their conversation ends off with Winter getting a message from Ironwood, which at the top of the scroll we see that Ironwood has flagged all communications with Winter as confidential. So apparently the message that check the news is highly confidential. We are looking at highly confidential information here. Just something funny I noticed. But on the news, seems like the mustached Dick is giving a message to the people, saying that, well, I've made it very clear that if I get elected on the council, I will greatly oppose Ironwood and his embargo that is crippling all of Atlas. And he goes on to say that this has been making many people suffer, and his family has been suffering alongside them, has had the same struggle. I understand that it has been a bit more of a struggle for him versus regular, but see, he's in a, you know, wealth class way up here versus the people who are in the mines. Now, let's assume that both of their situations have been affected the same and have been decreased the same. So it goes down to about here. Well, his quality of life is still much higher than that of the miners, even when they were starting out. So that's just arrogant of him to say that. But unfortunately, because of the hard times that his family is suffering, he is forced to shut down all unnecessary SDC operations. Meaning, everyone in Mantle is now unemployed who worked in the dust mines. And so ensues the riots that we saw at the beginning or in the trailer for Volume 7. Yeah, as Winter put it, this is the spark that is going to set the kingdom on fire, and oh boy, is it. And this is where the episode ends off. Atlas is not going to survive this overall arc. Everything's going to accumulate, probably not in this volume, but in the next volume, but oh boy, things are not looking good for all of Atlas. The entire kingdom is going to be in an uproar. Mantle is going to be in a huge riot and rise up against Atlas, just as I thought it was going to be with Tyrion and Watts' plans. Tyrion is going to go after Robin Hill to assassinate their last hope for getting any say in Atlas, with having a council member there, and that is going to drive things even further over the edge. Jacques made it seem like his company closing or laying off all the people in Mantle was Ironwood's fault. But I'm hoping at least some people can see through that. Like, no, you have enough funds. You're still making money off of dust, selling it to the military and everything. Sure, not to other kingdoms, but he can keep the mines open if he so chooses. It's just... oh, it's not a very good situation. But other than that, and the fact that Robin Hill is probably going to be a lot of trouble for, you know, the operations at Amity Coliseum, this episode was mostly positive. We got to see the Ace Ops getting a lot closer to Team RWBY and Team Juniper as they're starting to train together, and the Ace Ops are actually helping people improve their skills. I look forward to seeing how Jean is going to develop his semblance, because it's aura amplification, but considering he can amplify his own aura, projecting it outwards, he could possibly create an aura force field or something like that, maybe project it outwards, similar to what Crow did in his fight against Winter in Volume 3, where he kind of sent out like an aura slash, or I guess, what is it, Getsuga Tensho from Bleach? Yeah, something similar to that. I'd be amazed to see Jean do something like that. If he could Getsuga Tensho, I would love that. Not to mention, he's already a ladies' man, so it seems like he's gonna get everything this volume, which I feel like a couple people may not like very much, as Jean maybe isn't the most popular in the fandom, but we'll see about that. We also got reintroduced to Team Funky and, well, the rest of Team Funky in the form of Ivory and Cobalt, and saw their new designs, and Neon's adorable. You know, she was a bit annoying back in Volume 3, but she's adorable now. I love that they've reintroduced them, and I hope we get to see more of them fight alongside Team Juniper and Team RWBY, etc. I want to see more of the students at Atlas Academy. That's something we didn't get to see when we went to Haven Academy, you know, seeing the rest of Team Sun and seeing more of their interactions, or seeing other students at Haven Academy. I hope we do in Atlas Academy. As I mentioned, you know, there was that other student in the Vital Fighting Festival who made it to the finals. Now, this student may have graduated by now, as they were likely probably a third or fourth year student, so if we see that person as a full-fledged huntsman or something down the line, I would really like to see that. Nice throwback to Volume 3. And, you know, overall, this episode was just really good. It was kind of sad hearing that Penny's not allowed to make friends, but overall, I'm really happy to see that Marrow and Jean are getting along, Harriet and Ruby are getting along, Vine and Jean. You know, everyone is seeming to get along very well. This was one of the best episodes, I think, of the entire RWBY series, and I mean that. I absolutely loved this episode. The beginning sequence where was going through all the little training montage and them learning to be huntsmen in Atlas and everything. The music was on point. Everything was just fantastic. And all of the information that got dropped in this episode was brilliant. Let me know how you guys, or what you guys think about this episode, how you feel about it, whether you think it's as good as I do. I might be a little bit biased, but let me know down in the comments. What do you think about Robin Hill messing with Amity Coliseum? Or the fact that Winter's going to be the Winter Maiden? Do you think that she's actually going to be the Winter Maiden? Or do you think something involving destiny is going to go wrong with it, as that doesn't really seem to work out for people in the RWBY series? Let me know down in the comments below. I really look forward to hearing what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and want to see more of Volume 7 reviews, more theories, and also more RWBY polls, as either later today or tomorrow I will be starting the poll for RWBY's Best Boy, and I'll let that poll go on for a week, and we'll determine who is the best boy of the RWBY series, and how popular Jean actually is in the RWBY series. So, look forward to that. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.